entertainment is the green zone, which can be found on the screens in front of you. From the greenery of my home to the vast mysteries of the great outdoors, there's so much in this natural world to explore. And if you have something green to share, let me know in the comments below.
Hello everyone, welcome back or welcome to the HeyEunziverse. Welcome to this year's Hello Fall episode. From this episode on, I wanted to throw a potato party to ring in the fall season. This spring, I unexpectedly started growing some sprouting potatoes that my mom and I discovered in the pantry. I didn't expect to fall in love with the process of growing potatoes so much, but here we are. I have a couple varieties that I would like to buy for future years, but this year I only have grocery store bought potatoes. So there's a couple that we don't know the IDs of because we got rid of the packaging, but nonetheless it was a really fun experience with a few hiccups along the way, so let's get into it. First up is this no ID potato, which I labeled as Potato 2. It was the first to flush out growth and the first to die back. According to a few YouTube sources like Garden Answer and Homegrown Garden, it's best to wait until the leafy part of the plant dies back and then a few more weeks after that to maximize tuber growth. Once the plant has gone through that time, they're ready for harvest. Since this was my first potato harvest, I was extra excited. With each potato I uncovered, my excitement only grew. After I harvested potato 2, I decided that I would challenge myself to try at least one potato recipe each year as well. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm not a fan of cooking and I do very little of it. As such, you can tell that my skills in peeling, chopping, and cooking these potatoes leave much to be desired. also a bit anxious around kitchen knives, which is why I use a small fruit knife, and that made the process take about 8,000 years longer than it should have been. Thankfully, we got there in the end. The recipe that I'm following here is by Cooking Haru on YouTube. Basically, they're crispy potato pancakes, which I think are basically hash browns. I would say that my execution of the recipe was about a 6 out of 10 because I didn't have a slicer that would have made thinner strands of potatoes, and I don't think I used enough of the starch to hold it together. But despite how it looked, it was still really yummy in my humble opinion. It's amazing that a plant I cared for produced so many little potatoes that I could enjoy a meal from. The second one to be harvested is this Murasaki Sweet Potato. My mom's favorite sweet potato is this Murasaki variety, and apparently it's one of the more popular sweet potatoes out there. Unlike regular potatoes, sweet potato vines just keep growing and growing. I originally had 3 Murasakis to plant, and I read that you're supposed to leave the top of each potato exposed to the sun. So that's how I planted it, and one of them started to grow into a bushy plant. But about a week after, some wildlife got to one Murasaki, then another. I then put up some plastic spikes around the plant to keep them at bay. Unfortunately, that defense didn't hold up, and they chewed through a bunch of leaves and part of the last Murasaki. So as you can see, I had to go even more hardcore with the defense, and I covered up the entire thing with spikes. Upon realizing that the vines were growing too quickly for them to stay contained under the spikes, I rearranged them to allow for growth. I chopped back the plant once already, but come harvest time, it grew completely back to the size it was. I was most excited for these sweet potatoes since they were the only one I grew, but they were the biggest disappointment and biggest learning opportunity. As you can see, the pot was completely filled with roots, which didn't allow the tubers to grow at all. But even though I can't eat them, I'll be saving all of these as potential starters for next season's plants. My mom and I are also going to try growing them in a raised bed instead to allow for the tubers to grow as much as the roots and vines do. So better luck next time. Although we couldn't enjoy any sweet potatoes, we were still able to enjoy the vines. How and why, you may ask? Well, apparently the sweet potato vines are rich in antioxidants and have wonderful health benefits. As for how my mom prepares them for consumption, let's take a look. First, we separated the leaves from the stems, and to prepare the stems, we cut them into smaller sections and then peeled through the tough outer layers and threw them all into a pan with green onions, minced garlic, and some oil. We sauteed them until they were soft and goldeny brown, and bada bing bada boom, you've got one yummy side dish. On to the leaves. First, we boiled some water with a pinch of salt in it, then we dipped the leaves for about 5 to 10 seconds until the leaves were completely soft. It's very similar to how you can cook spinach. We separate any leaves that have clumped together as much as possible to allow for even seasoning. Our seasoning consisted of green onion, minced garlic, some crab sauce, and sesame seed oil, and bada bing bada boom, you've got another yummy side dish. The next potato is the first potato that I grew, which got me into growing potatoes in the first place. But it has a sad backstory. We'll call it Potato 1, and it was a mini potato that was growing really well until a bird started swinging from the plant and snapped it in half. This ended its life prematurely. I wasn't sure if it was going to continue growing, like sprout a new plant or something like that, and after a few weeks of not seeing anything, I dug the pot up. I didn't film or photograph any of this because at that point I had no idea I was going to do this potato party video. To my amazement, the plant had already produced a few other mini potatoes, so I decided to just pot those back into soil and see if it grew. Since it's now included in this video, you can guess that it did in fact regrow, though not much since it was too late in the season already. Still, I was happy to see that something grew from it. The red one is a new fully grown mini potato that came from the original. And as you can see, the seed potato was still very much intact and had all these potential potatoes sprouting from it. It honestly looked like an alien. But the plant was flopped over, so even though it was green, I made the executive decision to just pull it out and retire it for this growing season. the final potato is the Dutch baby. This potato plant was the only one that flowered, so that was a pleasant surprise. It was also much bushier and larger than any of the other plants that grew for me. When the older stems were dying back, a new little sprout started growing, but it didn't grow very big, and again, it was late in the season, so I just pulled it out. The Dutch babies I harvested are smaller than grocery store Dutch babies, but it was still a nice batch of potatoes, so I've got no complaints. I still haven't made anything with these potatoes yet, but I have a recipe in mind. If I succeed in making it look pretty, I'll include it for next year's potato party. Hint, it's another fried potato recipe. My favorite form of potatoes is definitely when it's fried, like french fries, hash browns, or tater tots. But I love a good baked potato, creamy mashed potatoes, country style with veggies for breakfast, in stew, in soup, you name it. Whatever form a potato is in, I'm pretty much a fan. Let me know how you like your potatoes. It kind of reminds me of that one Friends episode where Monica has to make everyone's nostalgic potato dish for Thanksgiving. Anyway, that was a long potato adventure. We laughed, we cried, it moved me, Bob. I have a bunch of small potatoes that I held back to try and grow next season, but as I said earlier, I do hope to get some other specialty seed potatoes to try. I hope you enjoyed this crazy potato party, and I hope you'll stay tuned for next year. If you've got any tips, tricks, insights, or your own potato adventure to share, let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.
As we come in for a landing, Carnian, I hope you had as much fun as we did on today's adventure. Until next launch, let's stay connected.